I don't know if you guys heard, but Grindr, you know, the gay dating app, the gay hookup app. It's had massive outages in Milwaukee because of heavy use, because of how rampant it is right now, how popular it is in Milwaukee. That's weird. What's happening in Milwaukee that caused Grindr outages? I couldn't even guess. Anyway, let's listen to the RNC here in Milwaukee and see what Marjorie Taylor Greene had to say. You know why Grindr's so popular? Because people got to look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. No, I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to do that. That's mean. I'm not going to make fun of people's looks. It's the hat.
We knew we couldn't let that happen.
Okay, my next life goal, ditch the hat, get a broccoli haircut like that. Love it. We got Gen Z representation here. We're going to watch some RNC speeches, you know, Republican National Convention. This is where, like, they nominate their candidate for presidency and all of that stuff. Happened on July 15th, I think, 2024? Mid-July, anyway. So I want to listen to what they had to say. There were some psychotic speeches on there. While we listen to this, we're going to play some Final Fantasy VII. Should be in the background. Won't bother you too much. You never played before. But yeah, let's give this a listen. Here.
We stood guard, we held it up, and we did not let it fall. It was all about respect, not just for the cloth, but for everything that the flag stands for. Too many people have...
Okay. What do you think was knocking around up there when you decided to show up to the RNC with a broccoli haircut?
Held it up, and we did not let it fall.
Valiant.
It was all about respect, not just for the cloth, but for everything that the flag stands for.
Totally.
Too many people have sacrificed everything for it. The least we can do was keep it flying. And tonight, we are proud to honor our flag again.
Oh my God.
The very first day that we take back the White House from crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of our country, I believe that we're going to have 4 of the greatest years in the history of our country. I will once and for all secure...
Wait, did he not show up to the RNC? That's interesting. Nice freeze frame too, by the way. And where's his ear bandage? Thought he had like a busted ear, like a broken ear or whatever. Let me make it clear. I have no problem with Gen Z, obviously. I'm like on the border, and my kid is Gen Z very clearly. People who were coming to adulthood around the year 2000, I was 10. I was not an adult at the time. I guess I'm still in millennial range, but I was 10 in the year 2000. My kid is born in 2009. We're very close in age because I was young when I had her. Anyway. The point is, I'm not really knocking Gen Z. I'm knocking fucking morons with stupid haircuts. Sorry.
We're going to have same-day voting, voter ID. We're going to do it properly. We're going to have good, secure, beautiful elections. We never want
Beautiful elections. Got to be gorgeous elections. He will not accept any ugly ones.
what happened in 2020 to happen again. But until then, Republicans must win. And we must use every appropriate tool available to beat the Democrats. They are destroying our country. Whether you
beat the shit out of those guys.
vote early, absentee, by mail, or in person, we are going to protect the vote. That's the most important thing we have to do, is protect the vote. Keep your eyes open, because these people want to cheat, and they do cheat. And frankly, it's the only
No, they don't.
thing they do well. We will make sure your ballot is secure and your vote...
It's the only thing they do well. I love it. This is a tenet of fascism. Your enemy has to be both strong and weak simultaneously. Too stupid and incompetent to do anything, but too intelligent to be outsmarted or whatever by a normal person. You have to have a genius in there.
Voices heard. Many Republicans like to vote on Election Day, and we must swamp the radical Democrats with massive turnout on Tuesday, November 5th.
Wait, why swamp them? I thought that they were going to cheat. What's the point in swamping them if they're going to cheat, right? Why bother? This doesn't make any sense. This whole mindset... I'm sorry, I'm fixing my camera. Just ignore. This whole mindset of they're going to cheat, so it's pointless, but I still want you to vote. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. He knows he's full of shit, right? He knows Democrats are not cheating. He must know that. Donald Trump, I think he knows that, personally. Quick interjection. This won't take long, I promise. I just want to say I'd appreciate it if you check my Patreon. OwenMorgan.com/Patreon to find it. YouTube's algorithm goes up and down, so I can never predict where it's going to be. Having patrons gives me some level of stability. Okay, back to the video.
The way you win is to swamp them. If we swamp them, they can't cheat. It just doesn't work out.
That doesn't make any sense.
But if you can't make it...
But you notice that little inhaler sucking his teeth or whatever that's called? You guys ever seen Trailer Park Boys? Oh, dude, that show is so funny. There's a guy named J-Rock, and he's a rapper, and he wants to be Eminem so bad. And he's got, like, a member of his posse, I guess, who's sweeping up here. They're all just trailer trash. So I guess they burned something down, and they're worried that people are going to know.
I ain't shook about nothing in my life right now, dog.
Like, I love that. That's so good. One more time. Let's just step back a little bit. Listen again. You can hear him. So I love this show to death. It is so funny. Oh, that's good, right? All right, let's watch Trump.
We will evict crooked Joe Biden from the White House, and we will take back our country on November 5th, 2024, the most important day in the history of our country. That's what it's going to go down as. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it is kind of a really important day. If Democrats lose on November, whatever, 24th, whatever it is, that might be it for democracy, really, in the United States. I'm not being flippant here. This is real. It's that important that you get out and vote. Seriously.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome recent Harvard University graduate, Shabbos Kestenbaum.
Interesting name. Never heard of him.
My name is Shabbos Kestenbaum. I am a proud first-generation American. I am a
Wait, I thought they didn't like immigrants.
proud Orthodox Jew.
Okay, wow, they're cheering for this. The interesting thing, or the thing that I find interesting about Republicans and their views on Judaism or whatever, is actually Republicans fucking hate Jews. But 90% of them believe that you have to, or believe that Israel must exist as a country for Jesus to return. Because when it says, basically, when Jesus comes back, he's going to go to the temple and so on and so forth. So there has to be a temple in Jerusalem that Jesus can go back to. So they need Jews to exist. So 90% of them will cheer for Jews. The other 10%, on it, maybe it's even like 30 or 40% at this point. I don't know. The other 30, 40% will say Jews are controlling the world and they're blah, 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 whatever. They're evil and they're, you know, they own most of the wealth and whatever other nonsense that they want to spread about Jews, you know, old Nazi stuff. So I find it really interesting that they're cheering for this guy, that he actually got applause here. That's interesting.
And as of 5 months ago, I am the proud plaintiff suing Harvard University for its failure to combat anti-Semitism.
What did Harvard... Wait, so you can't sue somebody for not taking an action like that, to my knowledge. I could be wrong, but it's their code of ethics. It's their policy. They can set it to whatever they want it to be. If they don't want to, like, they want to open it up entirely and only follow the constitutional requirements, or like the Civil Rights Act, where they must not discriminate in hiring practices based on religion or sex or whatever else, or race and all that stuff, they can do that. And if they do violate the Civil Rights Act, then they can be sued for that. But combating anti-Semitism, isn't that a little bit anti-free speech of him? I mean, I don't like anti-Semitism. I think anti-Semitism is wrong. But I'm super interested in the fact that this dude is suing somebody for not taking an action that they're not legally obligated to take in the first place. He graduated from Harvard. Doesn't he know better? No, and also Harvard didn't like enable anti-Semitism or whatever. There were protests, and protests are perfectly allowed and should be allowed. Protests against Israel's horrific treatment of the Palestinians, disgusting treatment.
I came to Harvard to study religion, the foundation of Western civilization.
No, but okay.
What I found was not theology, but a contempt for it.
Are you shitting me right now?
My problem with Harvard is not its liberalism, but its illiberalism. Too
Oh, wait, I thought he's conservative. So he doesn't like, or he likes liberalism?
often students at Harvard are taught not how to think, but what to think.
Oh my God. This is one of the most popular refrains among the right. Now, I'll tell you what they learn in Harvard because my wife is going to law school in New York City. It's not Harvard, but she did get an offer letter from Harvard to go there for what that's worth. They teach you how to write at Harvard Law School above all else. Writing is what lawyers do. They're writers. Seriously. I didn't realize how much of the job was just like writing papers, authoring papers, legal analyses and opinion pieces and all this other stuff. And they even have law journals that they publish to, just like science journals. They also learn how to read bills and write bills. That's really, really important. They have to be written in a very specific format, a certain they have to be written in a certain way, in a certain structure or whatever. And the first 2 years of law school are learning how to think like a lawyer, actually. Law is, I always thought to myself, like, why can't somebody just pick up all of the books that you study when you're in law school and read them and, pass the bar? Because people are technically allowed to take the bar if they want, even if they haven't gone through law school. 99% of the time, they fail. I think like 6 people or something per year pass the bar out of like hundreds or even thousands. And I asked my wife, like, what is it that you pick up in law school that you can't pick up in books or whatever? And the answer is the teachers break down your method of thinking, the way that you process legal information, and build it back up in an American fashion. So, like in an American style of legal, whatever. So my wife could go to Australia, for example, and pick up the legal system there, but it would be a struggle. It'd be an uphill battle. It's difficult to adapt to a new system, though they're both based on the same system. They're similar. They're not the same. Law is way more complex than people think, and you aren't taught what to think in law school, ever, at any point. My wife has had conservative teachers or professors, and she's had left-leaning professors. That kind of bias doesn't really slip in the same way, not to the same degree. They all agree on some base things. So this what to think versus how to think thing, it's just bullshit. And he knows it's bullshit because he went to Harvard Law School. You cannot convince me he doesn't know it's bullshit.
Liberalism, but it's illiberalism. Too often students at Harvard are taught not how to think, but what to think.
You're gonna get claps for that one, of course.
I found myself immersed in a culture that is anti-Western, that is anti-American, and that is anti-Semitic.
Oh my God, give me a break. As somebody says in the chat here, this is the party of anti-Semitism that he's representing right now. Like I said, some of the Republican Party loves Israel because they think Jesus has to come back to Israel when he returns. And the rest hate Israel and Jews because they think that they're like they were given up by God and they're evil and they're controlling the world and all that other stuff. People to the left of hunting the homeless for sport see them as like human beings, just like normal people. There's nothing special about anybody. Nothing special about me or you or Jews or Muslims or whatever. We're all people and we're all worthy of respect and human dignity. That's it. This guy is representing a party of people that either loves him or hates him. This is just wild to me. Wait, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. Wait. He didn't go to Harvard Law. He did religious studies. You're right. I wasn't even thinking. He didn't go to a law school. He didn't go to the law school. He went to Harvard undergrad. Okay, my mistake. He went to Harvard undergrad for religious studies. Well, that's interesting. I didn't know Harvard had a religious studies undergrad. Interesting. Wait, are people booing him?
Students at Harvard are taught not how to think, but what to think. I found myself immersed in a culture that is anti-Western, that is anti-American, and that is anti-Semitic.
I guess they're booing at anti-Semitism?
After October 7th, the world finally saw what I and so many Jewish students across this country experienced almost every day. When I planted 1,200 Israeli and American flags on campus, they were all vandalized within 24 hours.
Okay, I don't know if that's true. If so, wow, I'm really sad for you. But I've got to say, not liking what Israel is doing right now is not anti-Semitism. Being disgusted by the Israeli government isn't anti-Semitic the way that, like, the ADL, for example, wants to portray. It's really sad where, Israel as a country has completely co-opted people's minds. Like, they have built in an identity of any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism. It's not anti-Semitic to criticize a government, and a government is not Jews. And if you believe that it's anti-Semitic to criticize a government like that, like Israel, you're tacitly admitting that it's an ethno-state, that they live in apartheid. People tie their identities to Israel, and it's destructive. So the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, fantastic organization. Love them to death. They're the best. They do such a good job on stuff, tracking extremism and everything. When this whole thing with Israel exploded and they started committing a genocide against the Palestinians, the ADL, though being a left-leaning organization, started claiming that it's anti-Semitism to criticize the government of Israel. So they're left-wing nationalists, we've come to find. That's sad. That's really disappointing. That nationalism thing, where everybody has like a national identity that matches up, that's what nationalism is. They're Jewish nationalists. They believe that everybody in this country should fall under this umbrella. And if you don't belong here. It should be controlled by this demographic of people. Like, white nationalists believe that only white people should live in America, or only white people should be in power in America. Christian nationalists think that only Christians have the authority to rule in the world. Jewish nationalists are people who think that Jews have the sole right to control Israel. National socialists is what the Nazis were. Nationalism is what caused Nazism to rise in the first place. Socialism was different at the time than we know it today. At the time, socialism basically just meant like social programs like unemployment insurance, social security benefits, welfare, health insurance, that kind of thing. That's what it meant in Germany at the time. So National Socialists were people who were in favor of workers' rights and wanted to force their beliefs on everybody else and believed that Germany and the workers were the only ones allowed or who had the right to rule. Nationalism caused the Nazi movement to explode. That was the problem, nationalism. That was a component. Jews in Israel who believe that Palestine is evil and they deserve to be genocided or whatever are in the same headspace as the Nazis were. I'm not joking. It's the same mindset. Did he have permission to plant those flags? It's a good question. You know, propaganda comes in many forms. Around New York City, after Israel started their genocide against innocent Palestinians, against women and children, and honestly, men who didn't do shit to anybody. After they started doing that, Israel as a country rightfully started getting criticized. And in New York City, they started putting up posters, like missing posters, or have you seen this person or whatever, and they put pictures of the hostages that Hamas took on there. I don't disagree with that. That's, yeah, I'm sorry for those hostages. That's heartbreaking. But it's propaganda. It's pro-Israel propaganda. It's like George Bush having absolutely no support for the war. None for the Iraq war. It was extremely controversial. Nobody liked it. People were screaming about it. They're saying, this is a lie. This is all built on a lie. So they started this propaganda campaign, support the troops. Well, yeah, I mean, you should support the troops, right? I mean, they're over there giving their lives and all of that. And before you know it, people have forgotten about this is an illegal war and are now focusing on support the troops, which is effectively the same as support the military, support the war. The end result is the same. And in the same way, Israel is trying to deflect attention away from the fact that they're committing a genocide against innocent Palestinians, children. They're trying to deflect and make people forget about that by saying, help the hostages. Think about the hostages. Don't forget about the hostages. Putting up those hostage posters is propaganda. And I saw this firsthand. If you take one of those propaganda posters down, there's somebody waiting around the corner to pull out a camera and start screaming at you and calling you an anti-Semite and everything and calling you a Nazi. I watched this happen. People who put those posters up are waiting for an opportunity to spread more propaganda. So anyway, this whole I put flags up on campus or whatever, did he have permission to do that? Even if he did have permission to do so, it was part of a propaganda campaign to deflect attention away from the genocide and draw attention toward, I just like Israel is all. Not a big deal. I just love this country and I love the people in it. He's just completely full of shit. He's looking for an excuse to lie to people and propagandize.
When I planted 1,200 Israeli and American flags on campus, they were all vandalized within 24 hours.
Because people rightly recognize that as propaganda.
I was harassed by my peers merely for being a Jew.
That's bad behavior. But I'm not going to accept it when he tries to propagandize like that.
And have received countless death threats online.
Probably, and I'm sorry for that. That's wrong.
Students and professors have openly called for new Hamas-style attacks against the United States.
What? Who? Specifically, these are weasel words. Which people did that? Can you give me names? Anything? I don't believe you. I think you're lying. Who would call for terrorist attacks on the United States?
And perhaps most damning, when Hamas terrorists butchered 45 American citizens on October 7th, when they took 12 Americans hostage, Harvard refused to immediately and unequivocally condemn this atrocity.
Here's another piece of propaganda that was run in favor of Israel. Back, I don't know how long, like a year or so, around October 7th when all of this happened, and Palestine was being like attacked and the Palestinians being genocided by Israel. It was a controversial subject, and the leaders, the deans of like 3 or 4 different schools, Harvard being one of them, were brought in front of Congress to testify basically to what they were doing to stop antisemitism or something to that effect. I imagine those deans probably, before going in, agreed, we're going to be completely neutral and we're not going to say a word because our job is to teach it and to administrate, not to take political sides for or against any country. That's probably what they agreed to before the meeting. So when they get in, the congressman said, "Do you denounce what happened on October 7th? What are you doing to stop anti-Semitism? If somebody says, gas the Jews on your campus, what are you going to do?" And their answer for any of those questions was, if it violates our policy and crosses from speech to action, then they are kicked off campus or even expelled or whatever. That's when they've violated our rules or whatever. That was the line that they were going with, which is, in a vacuum, a perfectly reasonable policy. When it moves from speech to action, when someone's being harassed, that's when they're removed from campus. That's fine. But this propaganda campaign was waged against all of these deans over those answers when they were trying to be neutral, because they can't be neutral. They must be in favor of the Israeli government, not in favor of Jews, not opposed to anti-Semitism, but in favor of the Israeli government. That was the problem. And this massive wave of extremism and hate came against those professors, and they had to resign. It was insane. The dean of Harvard, the first black woman that was a dean of Harvard, they dug into her life so much that they fabricated like intellectual dishonesty. I don't know what the word is for it. It's where she didn't cite sources on a research paper or something, but she actually did cite the source. She cited the source like 2 sentences previously, and then she paraphrased it a second time below. But if you're paraphrasing it, you need to cite the source a second time. She didn't cite the source a second time, so she didn't put quotes around it the second time. That's not a problem at all in academics. But they found a reason, these extremists on campus, they found an excuse to demonize her, whatever it took, and they got her to resign. This is propaganda. This is how it all works. It's what it's all about. And, since I'm talking about it, let me show you one thing. When I say genocide, this is what I mean. Let me show you. Okay, this is Mark Lamont Hill interviewing Danny Ayalon. He's an Israeli official, and he describes what Israel's doing to Palestine right now.
I want to continue on this same vein because the Secretary General of the UN, Antonio Guterres...
By the way, I'm sorry, this is October 13th, 2023. This is like 5 days or something after the attack on Israel. And it was after Israel invaded Gaza, invaded Palestine to take them out, basically.
That he was deeply distressed by Israel's announcement of a siege on the Gaza Strip. He said that the humanitarian situation, quote, will only deteriorate exponentially, and that...
Yeah, sieges are illegal internationally. Those are against the law.
Crucial life-saving supplies, including fuel, food, and water, must be allowed into Gaza. So the UN is saying you must do this. You are saying you're not going to do this. How do you...
No, we're not saying that.
He's saying doing it immediately. What I'm saying is what you're doing.
No.
He's saying doing it immediately.
I got you. I'll tell you exactly what we're saying. I'm saying we will do everything for the Gazan people. Once and now, we demand immediate surrender, unconditional surrender of Hamas. If Hamas people come out with their hands up and clear their weapons, believe me, everything will be restored to Gaza.
Okay, here's the problem with that. Civilians, children, mothers, and even men have no control over what Hamas does. They can scream about it until they're blue in the face. It doesn't mean that Hamas is going to come out and give up guns or whatever. They're integrated into the population. Hamas is just normal people, by and large, who have weapons and fight against Israel's extremism. So how are you going to say we want every single Hamas person out? How are you going to say that? How can you possibly say that?
It is Hamas in Hamas hands.
Now I understand. Thank you for clarifying that, sir. I think we're actually on the same page here. You're saying that once Hamas leaves, you'll grant the Gazan people food, shelter, fuel, electricity, hospitals, schooling. And if they don't, and if Hamas doesn't leave, then they'll continue to starve and die in hospitals.
That's called collective punishment, and it's a war crime.
You are defining for the international community right now collective punishment. You're saying until Hamas acts differently, the 2 million people in Gaza are going to be treated this way. And once Hamas acts differently, these 2 million people in Gaza will be treated better. That is exactly what collective punishment is. You're holding...
And by the way, the Hamas leadership is in Qatar. largely. Yeah, there are Hamas fighters in Gaza, I'm sure, but a lot of them are in Qatar, the leadership. And by the way, Israel funded Hamas, the Hamas party. There was a secular party, that political party, that was trying to control the government. It was doing a decent job. They were controlling the government. They had sway in the Gazan government. They were doing pretty well. And Israel, the Israeli government, donated money to the Hamas party because it was militant and it wanted to destabilize Gaza. If it could destabilize Gaza, it's possible that it could lead to Israel having to swoop in and save it or whatever. Seriously, look this up. Israel funded Hamas.
Accountable for the actions of others. That is the definition, the textbook definition of collective punishment, sir. Now, you may accept that that's what you want to do, but this is absolutely a contravention of international law.
Well, I'll tell you exactly. No,
Yes, it is.
No, if we pushed them into the wall, we're not pushing them to the wall. We want to open a humanitarian corridor so they
He literally said he does not want to do that.
can leave. But if Hamas,
So that who
if
can leave?
Hamas-
So that who can leave? Citizens? You're saying civilians can leave, but only through the Rafah border, correct?
at this point, yes.
So they can't.
That's funny because Israel at this point told everybody, go to Rafah if you want to be safe. So they went to Rafah and then they bombed Rafah. They gathered all of the Palestinians, women and children specifically, into one city, and then they bombed that city, put them all in one place, and then killed them. It's a genocide, a full-blown genocide. And any pro-Israel shit that you see is pro-genocide propaganda. Any pro-Jewish thing that you see is not necessarily like, genocidal or propaganda or whatever. You can be perfectly A-okay with Jewish people, individual Jewish people, and you can be disgusted by the Nazi behavior of the Israeli government simultaneously. That's how I see things. That's how I feel. They are imitating Nazis right now. You know what's even more disgusting about this? There are concentration camps in Israel where they put Palestinians, and there have been like lots and lots of instances of Palestinians having like cuffs on for so long that they had to amputate their arms, having like handcuffs. They're so tight and they had them so long, and they forced them to hold their hands above their head for some period of time. They had to amputate. The culture among the Israeli military toward Palestinians is the same attitude, the same culture Nazis had against Jews. I know that's a tall claim, but I need you to hear it. I need people to understand this, that I'm saying it with a straight face. This is real. Please, if you don't believe me, look it up yourself. It's a genocide. For what it's worth, there are Christians in Gaza also. It's not a solely Muslim country. There are Jews there and Buddhists and people of all sorts. They have Christmas in Gaza. And also, there is no Hamas in the West Bank. The West Bank and Gaza are both Palestine, but they're separated. Israel runs through the two. Hamas doesn't exist in the West Bank. So why is Israel attacking the West Bank the way that they are? What's their excuse on that one? Pure, unadulterated hate and rage and vitriol. That's it.
Where else?
Your country. They can come into Israel.
Yeah, where are they supposed to go?
I'm telling you one more thing I want to say.
No, but I want you to address that point. Don't just smile, sir, respectfully. You're saying you're making a corridor. They can go to.
Yeah, you are smiling. You just smiled.
They can go to Egypt. You're bombing them. You say you want to save them, but they can't come in.
Oh yeah, I guess that was basically the end. I mean, I'm sure it's obvious now that the dude just didn't even give a shit. He was trying to justify a genocide any way that he possibly could. That's the bottom line. Just disgusting shit. Seriously. So anyway, this whole thing from this guy about putting up 1,200 Israeli flags or whatever, that was just propaganda. It was propaganda all along. And people were perfectly justified in taking them down unless you had permission to put them up in the first place. And even then, maybe they had justification to. I'm not sure what the laws are.
My fellow Americans, the anti-Semitic bigotry, unfortunately, extends far beyond the universities.
Okay, he's conflating anti-Semitism with anti-Israel, anti-genocide sentiment. They're different.
Although I once voted for Bernie Sanders, I now recognize that the far left has not only abandoned the Jewish people, but the American people.
Wait, why do you say they've abandoned the Jewish people? What does Israel have to do with Jewish people? They shouldn't be connected in your head unless it's an ethno-state, unless they live in an apartheid government. I thought Israel wasn't an apartheid state. I always fail this thing intentionally so that I can get like extra experience here. Like when I'm going in and fighting these guys, I always, instead of going through incorrectly, like missing them, I intentionally hit them.
The Democratic Party, the party I registered to vote for the day I turned 18, has become ideologically poisoned. And it is this poison, it is this corruption that is infecting far too many young American students. Let's be clear. The far left's anti-Semitic extremism has no virtue, and the radicalism on our campuses and on our streets has no moral legitimacy.
Yeah, but they're still allowed to say it. I mean, even if it's the most vile, vicious, hateful shit you've ever heard in your life, which it's not, but even if it was, people are still allowed to say that. It's called free speech, baby. That's what it's all about. Are you trying to stop people from using their free speech? What happened to the crowd of free speech or whatever? What happened to all that?
Sadly...
Oh, he's wearing a yarmulke. I didn't even notice.
Sadly, the far left-wing tide of anti-Semitism is rising. But tonight, we fight back.
Boy, that's never a word you want to hear at a nationalist convention.
I am proud to support President Trump's policies to expel foreign students who violate our laws, harass our Jewish classmates, and desecrate our freedoms.
Okay, violate laws. Yeah, you shouldn't be violating laws, but he included in that list things that are just like, you know, covered under free speech. You just want to like violate people's freedom of speech and expression? Like government enforced punishments for things that you say? Are you fucking kidding me right now? And you know what this reminds me of? Oh, look at Trump here. Where's his ear banded? Oh, I guess it's the other ear, right? You know what this reminds me of? What this guy's saying? This is what this reminds me of. This is Josh Feuerstein. He's a right-wing extremist, famous for addressing atheists on social media. He always says, "Dear Mr. Atheist," blah, 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 blah. Actually, that's where Jimmy Snow, that's where he got his name, from him. He calls himself Dear Mr. Atheist. Anyway, listen to what Josh Feuerstein says about abortion here. This is from early December 2015.
So let me get this right. Tonight, America's crying about an old lion named Cecil that was killed by some dipwad who cut his head off and left his...
Oh, I remember that. Yeah, some D-bag killed a lion that was like people's pride and joy of this country or whatever.
Body there, but check this out. Planned Parenthood has hunted down millions and millions of little innocent babies.
No, they haven't.
Stuck a knife into the uterus.
Oh my God, here we go. All right, I'm skipping this unnecessarily graphic part.
But what about the babies? You know what I call that? I call that being a hypocrite. I say tonight, we punish Planned Parenthood. I think it's time that abortion doctors should have to run and hide and be afraid for their life.
Oh boy.
Instead of some hunter. Both are wrong, but one is a lion. The other are humans.
So yeah, that was him calling for violence. He deleted that not long after. And by the way, if you want access to any of my clips, you can access those. That's not on the internet anymore. owenmorgan.com/clips, you want to find it. The point that I'm so laboriously reaching is that when extremists and nationalists like this say that kind of thing, I say, tonight we fight back. That starts to concern me a little bit.
Let's elect a president who will instill patriotism in our school once again. Let's elect a president.
Once again, he thinks that patriotism was in schools, quote unquote, his definition of patriotism. But his definition of patriotism is nationalism.
Who will confront terrorism and its supporters once again. Let's elect a president who recognizes that although Harvard and the Ivy Leagues have long abandoned the United States of America, the Jewish people never will, because Jewish values are American values, and American values are Jewish values.
No.
God bless the United States. God bless the land of Israel. God bless, protect, and return the American hostages in Gaza now.
You know, Israel was given the opportunity to free all the hostages in Gaza. They were given the opportunity, and they didn't take it. They said, no, I don't want to do that. Netanyahu said that specifically. They had the chance, and they blew it. They didn't just blow it, they rejected it. So I don't want to hear any of this bullshit crying as though you give a shit about hostages.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the parents of an American hostage held in Gaza, Orna and Ronan Nutra.
Dude, what are people yelling? And Jesus Christ, this is a gigantic crowd. How the hell can we hear what they're yelling? It's so big. Bring them home is what they're yelling, I guess. You know, I was, when I was growing up, I was never allowed to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I stood for the pledge, and that's about as far as it ever went. And when I got older, I didn't know, and still don't actually know, which hand you're supposed to put over your heart, left hand or right hand. I always get it mixed up, and that is a grievous error. You do not want to confuse those two. Apparently, it's like a massive insult to put the wrong hand over your heart. Is it the left hand you put over your heart? It's the right hand. So like this. Okay. I put the left hand over one time when I was at like my kid's gymnastics tournament or whatever. She was little. And her mom was there, and she was like, take the hand up, put the other hand on. Oh my God. Good thing nobody saw that. Again, complain to Israel. You're complaining to the wrong people right now.
Our son, Omer, is an American citizen. For 285 long days and nights, Hamas terrorists have been holding Omer imprisoned in tunnels underneath Gaza. Omer, which is a biblical name and means in Hebrew the first crop, is our firstborn. He was born in New York City 1 month after 9/11. 8 months pregnant, I walked across the Queensboro Bridge towards home that day.
Okay, I know where she's talking about.
And here we are, 23 years later, and he's the victim of another vile terrorist attack.
Wait, he wasn't a victim the first time. What are you talking about? But okay, yeah, that was a terrorist attack on Israel. That is true.
Let me tell you a little bit about my son.
Please.
He's a connector. He's an extremely social person. He loves sports. In high school, he was captain of the soccer, volleyball, and basketball teams. He's a natural leader.
This is just, once again, this is like support the troops again. This is them talking about things that everybody can get on board with. Everybody wants hostages brought home. Everyone. In an effort to whitewash or erase the wrongs that Israel is doing right now. I want Omer brought home, as do you and everybody else, I'm sure. I also want Israel to stop committing a genocide. And if they stopped committing the genocide, Hamas agreed to release the hostages. So by this woman calling for Israel, or calling for Hamas to release the hostages, what she's really doing is calling for a release of the hostages, but not an end to the genocide.
And he cares deeply about others and about helping them grow. He turned 22 on October 14th, 2023. And instead of celebrating with us and with his friends, he spent his birthday as a hostage of Hamas terrorists.
I'm sorry for that, actually, truly. I'm very sorry.
Imagine, over 9 months, not knowing whether your son is alive, waking up every morning, praying that he too is still waking up every morning, that he is strong and is surviving.
I'm sorry for her.
I recite Psalm 23 in his merit every single day. Gam ki elech begei tzal mavet, lo erara ki ata imadi. I walk through the shadow of the valley of the shadow of the death. I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me.
Bring them home. Bring them home. Bring them home. Bring.
I mean, you know who you have to complain to for this, right? It's not some crowd at the RNC.
Them home. Bring them home. During the brutal October 7th attack on Israel, over 1,200 people were slaughtered. Of them, 45 were American citizens.
Didn't they already say this?
Where is the outrage?
Like, people are outraged. It's just on Israel to do something about it. Like, America can't do anything about it.
Where is it? This was not merely an attack on Israel. This was and remains an attack on Americans.
No, it's not an attack on Americans. There were American citizens over there that were taken. That doesn't mean this is an attack on Americans. He's trying to conflate it to make this an American problem too, trying to bring America into it.
Omer is one of 8 American hostages and one of 120 hostages still left in Gaza. Citizens of 24 countries and 5 different religions, still held by Hamas, denied basic human needs, their lives threatened every day. President Trump called us personally right after the attack when Omer was taken captive.
Really? Trump called after he was taken captive? Something tells me I don't believe that. But okay. You know what? Maybe so. What is Trump going to do? He's going to spark an international incident. You think that this is going to get better under Trump? No, everything's going to get a lot worse under Donald Trump.
We know he stands with the American hostages. We need our beautiful son back. And we need your support.
Complain to Israel.
We need our support to end this crisis and bring all the hostages back home. Them home. Bring them home. Bring them home. Bring them home. Bring them home.
Omer, we love you. We won't stop fighting for you.
Say it with us. Bring them home. Bring them home. Bring them home. Thank you, everybody. God bless Israel and God bless America.
Tell me what you think about it in the comments. These people need help. Seriously.